Okay, let's do the update here on the back of where we were kind of a few days ago. I think crypto is in an interesting spot. I think it still looks really good. I kind of discussed that bullish daily kind of level reclaim, the potential move back down towards it. I think it's obviously it's this big box here on the higher time frames, and I think that the market is doing a pretty decent job of holding up around this zone, which is where we would want to see it respond and react. The last cluster that we had in here, which was mid-May, all was supported underneath this level, and it's what we've started to see on the last 2 days of price action. Obviously, we need that to stick, right? This level can't move down. So the lower time frames, we're also doing a pretty good job here because we're basically just kind of playing kind of the trick card through this region, in that we keep on dipping down into it, looking as though we're about to die, and then making the recovery. And I got stopped out of my long position overnight on BTC, played it on the back of this, entered a position on the recovery. We had a really nice hourly divergence down here, set the position, stop loss underneath here, was very smug when this candle came. Fuckers can't get me, can't touch my stops. And then unfortunately on the open last night, ran through everything before producing the bounce. But again, the situation still remains the same. One of those thought processes of, well, I'm trading this on the 15-minute chart, but actually the daily picture is still fine and still looks pretty decent as long as we're holding through this box here at the high 26s. So I think BTC is still in a good position. The other thing is, I think that psychologically, I think the market is also at a good point to potentially put in a move. We've seen volatility being pretty pathetic and low when it comes to BTC. We've seen quite a lot of back and forth price action, but really nothing being gained or lost in terms of that bigger picture on BTC. We're still kind of just grinding around this same zone, and I think that's been particularly hard for crypto traders, people who are solely focused on the crypto markets, because in recent times they've had to watch AI pop off. They've watched equities make fresh highs, some making all-time highs. They've watched the indexes continue to make fresh high after fresh high. And I think it's been quite a punishing process if you're a pure crypto trader throughout this period of time, because there's been so much value elsewhere and none of it's translated to crypto yet. None of that action has translated to crypto price action, and the correlation between, even the gold correlation, the metals correlation is slightly off, given that metals had a really good day yesterday. The index correlation is way off, certainly from an upside perspective. So it's been quite a punishing time, and I think when we get these periods of time where kind of like frustration is at max and kind of everybody is really beat up by the market and caught up in the chop, or being on the wrong side of kind of like the crab consistently, we tend to put in some of those larger moves. Now, I'm not just saying that from kind of this make believe psychological CBS picturing of what the market looks like, and therefore the forces that are going to impact the market, but also because I think some of the higher time frame setups still look really good, obviously, like the BTC example. There are a number of alts in here which also have a very good setup, and I think you can dive through the list. Certainly kind of FET, Render, Sol, ETH, I think all have pretty good setups. A lot of alts actually held up better than BTC did as well during the last sell-off. So I think there's a number of very attractive alts that are also within this list that you can dive into and start thinking about what positioning looks like, and if it's something that again, you think that we're going to see a bit of a push up in the market. But certainly a lot of things have done a nice consolidation period, better than BTCs through this region on the alt side of things, and look ready for a push back to the upside. So I'm certainly going to be kind of making 3 or 4 plays through this region to try and capture some of the upside. One market that I think is in particularly good shape is Ocean. It's been very aggressive over the last couple of days. We've got a really nice higher time frame structure here, and these are just meme lines really, just to give us an idea about where the kind of consolidation or the impact of any breakout is going to happen. And we're seeing that through here. So At present, this 3-day is going to be a breakout candle. RSI in a very good position. Awesome Oscillator about to cross over, so we get that big momentum wave potentially to follow in behind it, and a very, very good looking higher time frame chart for Ocean. Really good protection of the bottom line here. And as I said, now starting to see that breakout through this zone. Now, 13 hours until the close. Target region, I think, look, there's a really good high over here around 65, which means that even if you're entering into the position on the close of a 3-day, let's say it closes somewhere around this, you're still looking at a potentially 50% upside. So one of those trades that I think, even though we've been green for a couple of days, don't sit there with your thumb in your ass thinking, well, I've missed the trade, I can't do anything about it. Keep in mind where any potential upside targets are, but also keep in mind the fact that in order to position for something like this, you're obviously going to need a bit of a wider stop underneath as well. So you're going to have to think about your risk when it comes to what a 15% stopping distance looks like for you in order to capture a 50% potential move to the upside. But one of those markets that's shown significant strength over the last 48 hours or so and is kind of leading the way in terms of the charge up today. So a good market, I think, to position for. Index side of things and traditional side of things, dollar starting to struggle a little bit. Starting to see a reaction now from the high. This is kind of a good region for that, especially from a risk perspective. We'd love to see another lower high here, just follow the market structure to the downside. Nothing to really discuss in too much detail there. This morning, SPX pushing into a fresh high. I think this looks like it's going to fucking rocket. Honestly, I posted yesterday with like more calls. You would not believe how many green buttons I'm pushing on TradFi. Like I'm hitting weekly calls. I've been doing it like the last 3 weeks running, just literally continuing to play into green conditions. At one point, right, 1 week, that's going to fail. That's not going to serve me well. But so far, it's just been ticking over, time after time. These markets, even though they look extended, they look tired, it looks as though we're getting the sell-off. It doesn't materialize yet. It will do at some point, and I'm well aware of that. But until it does, I'm going to keep on pressing the green button because it's just opportunity. It's just opportunity to push in. Something like Tesla is a very good example as well. This is something I just hit 202.50 calls for the end of this week because, again, we started to kind of, slow down and correct. I took these on Tuesday, started to correct. We had a down day on Wednesday, and then bam, we just took off again. And pre-market, we're up at 210s. So the equity side of things continues to be green, continues to be very strong. Now, interestingly, two markets, crypto-related equity side of things in Riot, looking pretty decent through here. We have a really good higher time frame consolidation region between the 1270s and the 1040s on Riot, and any break to the upside here, especially RSI positioning, should be pretty good. I would be lying if I told you that my kind of a lot of my bullishness comes from the fact that I think that Riot and Coin look in very, very a very good position on the higher time frames. Whether or not they're leading, whether or not they are, just kind of, the better plays in terms of, the market aggregation at this point in time, I don't know. But Coin has looked particularly attractive despite BTC looking like dog shit. So I've had calls for Coinbase again from Tuesday, which is when I took the end of the week calls, and hopefully they're gonna cash today. Riot is another one. It looks in a really good position here if it starts to break up on the higher timeframes. And given what we've just been discussing about crypto in terms of it looks pretty decent for an upside push, a lot of these consolidations have held, it would translate into these markets doing very well. And don't forget, when you think about the kind of the equity ownership for crypto in terms of, taking position on Coin or Riot as opposed to taking direct crypto exposure, they are very, very good performers. They are very good performers. If you look at the performance of Coin, and Riot, you take Riot off the 2023 lows, Down here at the 330s, we're still up 280% at this point. We've traded as high as 330% up. And then you take the picture on coin and you do the same from the lows down here that we had back in January, and it's basically the absolute pico bottom through here. And again, coin is up 165%, even at current levels, was still up a 2x off the lows. They're very good markets for exposure. MicroStrategy outperforms Bitcoin, right? It's outperformed Bitcoin off the bottom. So I think don't fear taking equity exposure to crypto if you want to do some things with calls. I know a lot of you will have, better access to options when it comes to traditional markets than you will do from a crypto perspective. So if you're looking at, well, I want, some different exposure, I want to look at what, maybe taking some Coinbase calls looks like for just some managed risk. Here's a couple of $1,000 or whatever on some calls that I'm happy to lose and see if we get the upside push, versus trying to manage and overmanage your positions in the more volatile conditions of something like trading render, right, which is going to swing back and forth 7% in a day and potentially wipe out your stops before mooning 30%. So just making sure that, again, you're not put off by using some of these vehicles for exposure to crypto instead of just relying on, trying to perfectly get your stop losses in and not get wicked out and various other points. So coin, good overall position here. I think the kind of the push up today, there's a really clean level in here on the hourly, and so we started to break out of that yesterday here. So we can see this kind of 62.60s been a sticking point for coin all the way along this region. Finally got a breakout, sold off last night when crypto turned around and came straight back down into this level. And so far today, 1.9% up pre-market, looking as though we're getting the bounce from this region. Hourly is in a good position. And then the higher time frames now look as though they're going to get this expansion out of this zone. So we can see, again, this is a higher time frame build-up that we've got through here. We just shift to the daily, it's the same. And now, hopefully, starting to see that expansion. We can see this consolidation region that we've had here as we've just been back and forth throughout all of May. And now hopefully starting to see some expansion here. So hopefully Coinbase leading the way, better aggregator, don't know, but it's in a good position. Same with Riot. If you want exposure there, I think those markets look pretty decent still, and there's certainly lots of plays that you can consider on that side in terms of getting your crypto fix from a different source this time. I still feel pretty good about the market. I don't think anything has changed aside from some fuckery on BTC, aside from stopping me out of my long position. Nothing's really changed. I still see this as a pretty good setup. I think the conditions are right. If I give you, the make-believe fairy tale about the psychology being particularly battered and the markets being crabby and not impulsive and not following AI and not following the indexes and not following metals, then I think this is a good opportunity for crypto to spread its wings. Not only my fairy tale, but also I think the technical side of things. I think the charts line up well on the higher time frames, the mid time frames. You just need to think about what your exposure is if you are planning on playing into the upside, because like we were just discussing, you can get stopped out of some of these moves before they happen. We know what crypto is like, and the volatility is the killer, especially when we're trying to use tight stops. We're trying to, pico time things. So just need to be aware of that. But overall, thought process hasn't changed. Looking for upside, will be a longer of this market. And good luck if you join me in the crusade.